republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we know emotions are high and that members of the community, staff, board care deeply about our students and our schools. We all share the same goal, to make Schenectady a safe, strong, supportive place where every student has the opportunity to learn, grow, and be valued. The board meeting is a space for respectful dialogue and the conduct of official business. We welcome everyone's presence tonight and ask that all in attendance help us maintain the decorum and respect this process requires. Let's remember that our actions and words here in this room are also examples for our young people and our community beyond these walls. Thank you, and we will now move on to tonight's agenda. The first item is the adoption of the agenda for October 29, 2024. Are there any corrections or additions? Hearing none, the agenda is adopted as presented. Before we move into our consent agenda items, I'd like to take a moment to address the next item, the presentation and acceptance of the district's annual audit report. In keeping with Education Law, Section 2116A, the Board of Education is required to review and formally accept the independent audit report and management letter as part of our commitment to transparency and fiscal responsibility. At this moment, if our CFO has any comments he would like to share about the audit report? No? Okay. So at this moment, are there any questions from the board? At this time, I'll make a motion for the board. Okay, you do?
Oh, I just was gonna comment that the audit report was what they call a clean audit, and there were no comments and so on for the purposes of the public who probably would wanna read that whole report. So that those were the significant findings there, non-findings basically.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Kathy. So at this time, I will accept a motion to accept the independent auditor's report for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Thank you, Board Member Kathy. Second? Second. Thank you, Board Member Amanda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries to accept the independent auditor's report for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2025. The consent agenda includes routine items approved together unless a member requests removal. Would anyone like to remove an item? Okay, may I have a motion to approve consent agenda items 4A through H? May I have a motion? Thank you, Board Member Alexandria. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Kathy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion to approve consent agenda items 4A through H
Do we have
carries.
either of the two people that are
We're gonna get there.
Oh, okay.
Do we have anyone we want to say congratulations?
Terrence Sloan is here.
Terrence Sloan, principal.
Yes.
Where's Terrence?
If you can stand up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Terrence Sloan, Principal at Yates.
Congratulations. So now we will move to the cell phone presentation. I would like to welcome Assistant Superintendent of Planning and Accountability in Secondary Schools, Tyrone O'Mealy, and his team, who will be leading tonight's presentation on the implementation of the cell phone policy. We also invite our SBRs, our student board representatives, in addition to student board president Janice, to be part of this discussion. Please come to the mic if you'd like to share your perspectives, SBRs. Before we begin the discussion, I want to ground us in the board policies that frame this work. You'll see two guiding, hopefully you'll see them very soon, questions in front of you aligned with the policy 7318, which is the PED. The personal electronic devices policy. If not, I will read it to you in a minute. The two questions. So the first question is, how does our updated cell phone policy reflect and reinforce the values of the Code of Character, Conduct, and Support, particularly respect, responsibility, and relationships within our schools and school culture? And the second one, and hopefully these questions will be up there in a minute, From a governance perspective, how will the board monitor and evaluate the effectiveness and fidelity of this policy's implementation across schools to ensure equity and consistency district-wide? And I do want to remind the board, these are guiding questions, but of course, like any other board meeting, you can ask any question that you like. This just helps us frame our conversation around our policies. Okay? So I also would like to remind everyone of our discussion process. Each board member may ask up to 3 questions in the first round with a follow-up, so everyone has equal time. We'll then open for additional comments if time permits. Again, our shared expectations are keep questions policy focused, be concise, respect one mic, one voice, keep our students at the center of each conversation, and honor diverse viewpoints. So now I would love to welcome Mr. Tyrone O'Mealy.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Cotto.
That's not showing anything.
Yeah, she's working on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So thank you for having me tonight. I'd like to first and foremost thank you guys for supporting our buildings as you usually do in typical fashion. We're going to give you an update of our cell phone policy, policy 7318 tonight. The pillars that this policy does address is student graduate success and efficient and equitable systems. It also addresses superintendent goals of culture, climate, and well-being. This is going to be a brief overview of how the cell phone policy is in our building currently, where we spent the last year, 2024-25, developing the policy with a lot of stakeholder feedback. We'll talk about that today. And then, we're only, just for perspective, we're only 2 months into it. So, we have a long way to go. So with that being said, I'd like to invite first up Chris Chang to talk about our journey.
So you drive the PowerPoint? Okay.
So,
All right, good evening, board.
Good evening. Good evening.
This has been quite a journey, as Mr. O'Mealy said. Kind of my job is just to give you a little bit of an idea of where we've been. You gave us the charge, right, more than a year ago now, to begin to at first investigate how to fulfill the policy and those pieces. And so we actually began our work more than a year ago, back in September of 2024, by creating a committee. We had representation from the elementary, the middle, the high school, as well as we had members of the Board of Education who were there to provide support and guidance in order to keep us aligned. We had overall, over the last 13 months, we had 18 different meetings, official committee meetings, which didn't certainly include a lot of the other more informal conversations and the conversations we had with other leaders and other stakeholders throughout the district. Many of those meetings were really about some of the nuts and bolts, right? Some of the different pieces and looking at the various products, receptacles. Yonder pouches is where we, as everybody knows, where we ended up. Members of our team went to visit schools. We traveled south to Newburgh, we went to Troy. These are schools and school districts that had already implemented things like this. And we got some really, really good advice and made some really strong networking connections with principals and with other leaders in those districts in regards to it. And then, as everyone knows, in the spring of 2025, kind of the rest of the state caught up to where we were and kind of announced that distraction-free schools policy. At that point, we were already ahead. We were already in the phase of talking about which appropriate receptacle would work at each level. We had already begun in working with the communications department as well as the ELT to talk about the way we were going to communicate this out to all of the stakeholders, students, families, the overall community, our staff members, our teachers, and everyone in terms of quote unquote how this was going to work. We hosted a number, I lost count of how many different community forums we had. We had a number of them here in person at Liberty Street, but we also had some great success in the virtual platforms in July and August in getting lots of feedback from students and from family and community members. And then kind of that last step was really to bring it forward as our school community came back together for opening day and the fall, letting our teachers, our school secretaries, who really are on the front lines of a lot of this, as well as our other school administrators know what that direction is. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to bring up Mr. Green and Mr. Farina to talk about the qualitative impact, what it feels like in our buildings.
Good evening, guys. How are
Good
you?
evening.
I'm
No, that's why I feel like you're a little fella.
So some of that qualitative stuff, it's happened organically throughout the past 9 weeks of school. It's been a struggle to some extent of creating the process, getting students in on time, adjusting to something that is new and, not so much wanted. But then as we progress through the year and I begin to meet with students organically, and I say that as an example today, I have 4 kids, they missed their CTE bus. So they're in my office and we're talking about it and they see a magnet on the desk and they comment on it. So that's my invitation to say, like it was like, oh, yonder. So Green, what do you think about this? And I got an email from a student asking, interviewing me, and I love it. But I said, well, tell me what you think about it. And it's a great dialogue, great discourse. Some of the things that we're hearing, and I am surprised, but I'm not surprised because as I stood in front of you and said that I heard these comments from students from Newburgh and Troy, our students are saying the same things. And after you get the, oh, we hate it, it's always a but. There's less drama. Like I'm not so worried about texting, or as I look around my classroom, I see my peers paying attention. Their heads are not down in text messages. So, once we get past that, addiction or that urge to want to look at it constantly, they're starting to recognize how much they are engaged, how much they're talking in our lunchrooms. I struggle with the lunchroom piece, right? Because I'm like, it's not academics, it's lunchroom, but you're starting to see that engagement in the cafeteria. And we've opened the gym and students are going to play basketball in the gym and doing other things. So I love what I'm seeing. It's still brand new. It's still a struggle. Like I want to make sure that we are having dialogue and discussions constantly with our students about why it is and what it looks like and how we're improving and how they feel about it as well. I love hearing I hate it, but we're seeing kids in the libraries more, especially during our lunches, to where you would see them off on their phones. Now they're in groups, they're playing chess more, they're checking out more books. So I would like to look at that quantitative data around that piece to see the impact of it. Hearing them say these things is one thing, but I'm excited to see like what is that quantitative data that we get from it, and not just books, but grades and things like that.
I'm seeing students interact with each other more. I mean, the morning arrival's a little louder, the lunchroom is louder, but they're talking. We have students playing Uno, playing cards, or playing with these. I mean, I was walking by this little thing, you zip, like spin around, and I was like, oh, what's going on? And I was like, oh, you guys are having fun. Knock yourself out. That's okay. That's good noise. The hallway, the students are more, it's easier to interact because they're not hiding something in their ear or they don't have their head down. So I'm noticing a lot more eye contact between students and students and students and adults. You're having real conversations. Like I said for Mr. Dills outside, the students are walking up and talking to us in the morning when we greet them in. In years past, they were on a device, they were doing something, and I'm seeing that if a young person needs to contact a parent, they ask, all the adults are making more than accommodating situations for them, whether they ask them to come down and we unlock it, or if they use the extra phones that they put in the office, they come in, we get them. If they need privacy, the administrators offer their offices so that if they need to talk to a parent or a caregiver. But it's really nice to see middle schoolers behaving like middle schoolers. They're talking, they're interacting, they're playing outside more during recess, playing basketball, football, they're playing tag. They're just walking around and talking, and it's nice.
And I love the piece when I'm in the hallway and I'm on my phone and they call me out on it. Even if I'm with a student saying like, hey, here's your schedule. They're like, Mr. Green, get off your phone. And I smile because, whether they're saying it to be sarcastic, be funny. I like that because they're hearing it, they're seeing it, and they want me to be engaged as well. And I guess that's how I'm seeing it is, we want you to be engaged with us as well, so.
I'm also noticing adults, staff members not using their phones, and if they are, they're using it away, not in front of students. Personally, if I need to take a call, I'm actually on the street outside. I'm not on my phone. I mean, I used to be crazy with cribbage. If you know what cribbage is, it's a card game. I used to play it relentlessly. Now I don't. If I need to call
At home
someone.
or at work?
It's addictive. You should sit there and if someone's talking to you, you go, oh, I'm gonna drop a deuce here. But I would go outside and make a phone call if somebody, if Mr. O'Mealy calls, I don't take the phone call in the office when I'm home. Sorry. You call sometimes. But I'm noticing other adults doing that as well, which is nice. Everybody's trying to model.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Let's see if this- So we'd like to look at this has qualitative but quantitative impact, and just as it relates to the codes that are related to electronic devices. The first slide, if you take a look at this, it's we have two codes primarily that you see, and so let me explain this graph to you. Code 280 and code 222. Sorry about that, I said 280, 222. Those are the number of occurrences or referrals that are generated based on that. Code 126 was the only code that we had last year. So when you see that first blue line, right, that encompassed everything. And the one on the right, that was just the first incident alone this year. All right, so if now we move over to code 240, if you see at the bottom, I know it's a lot, and I got another graph you guys be able to look at. So those are students where it says, hey, we got to address it more than once. So the blue line from last year, 24, 25, if you look where it says 280, that was the only way to capture electronic violations of policy. This year, 222, you see the number 222, that indicates hey, it's the first incident. Come on, you got to put that away. And if it's found in class, teachers write the referral, and they mention it to the admin. And then if it's more than once, you look at code 240, that's those students who are just recurring. Then, a couple things right here, if you look at post and distribute derogatory, threatening, lewd material, went from 3 to 2, threats to school, 2 to 0, but I like the last one on the right. Last year, we had 39 incidents recording, promoting, posting, and transmitting violence. This year, we went down to 3, right? And some of those are off campus, right? And so that's a big one. Some of the things that I believe are not conducive to a positive learning environment, the things that go on TikTok, and those are the things that really deteriorates a learning environment. So I'm really proud of that one right there.
And then we have incidents by month. So initial incidents, which are again that 126 code, we see some pretty similar numbers from September of last year to September of this year. There's not really much to compare that new code to, but there were only 28 repeated violations of the personal electronic device in September. October, we saw 156 last year, 102 initial this year, so a little bit of a decrease there, but again, there's not really much to compare that 58 to. Next year will be more telling with the repeated violation of that policy.
And there should be an asterisk on this slide, and we could just put it down to this one. There's just another view of this next slide. Last year, all students had their phones out, and just depending on the teacher who would document the incident, right? So this year, the administration, when we met as a committee, we really want to know when phones are being used in the building, so they're being more intentional. So last year's data is a little skewed because phones were allowed. When did it constitute a referral? This year it's very explicit. You see it. We said what we didn't want is, when we gave professional development to the teachers, we said this. We know that you have strong relationships with your students, and typically any great teacher, when the policy wasn't really enforced, Tyrone had his phone. Tyrone, we talked about this, put it away, please. And Tyrone would put it away. This year we says, you have to let the administrator know, and we have to write a referral on it. So it's really not comparing apples to apples, but this is what we have this year. And this last chart right now, just comparative, the two codes, 126, 240. Keep in the back of your mind, code 240 didn't exist last year. So 126, first time instance right here, it's lower compared to last year. And if you look at code 240, this is the first time we're having we're having the code this year for those who are just repetitive, right? And if you go, what I like best, if you go all the way down to code 436, that's the recording, right? 32 down to 3. And then when you dig a little deeper into those referrals, some of those may took place not maybe outside where the case may be. So we're moving in the right direction. And hopefully, well, we will. And Chad's gonna come up and talk about our next steps where we could present what this data really should do for the buildings.
So like anything that we do, our next steps, it's not implementation and done. So we have a lot that we need to continue on for our next steps. One of the biggest things is what's that ROI? What's that return on investment? So as we're looking at the data, as we're looking at it monthly, as we look at it at the end of the year, it's can we make that correlation that this new policy supports a safer, welcoming, and more conducive environment for our kids. So we're gonna continue to look at that month over month. We'll look at that over the year as we continue to roll out this process. We're working on continuing to develop a consistent process for replacement of pouches. Whether they're damaged by students, whether they're damaged in the process of getting them, whether we get a few that are damaged. So what is that consistent process? Because we want every building to be doing the same thing. And then as we talked about it, Chang talked about in the beginning, we did start with a lot of meetings, but we are going to continue to have meetings because as we roll this out, we want to ensure that what we're doing is working. So we're going to continue to have meetings with our stakeholder groups to continue to make sure that the things that they're seeing, things they're seeing from their students, things that you're seeing are actually working. So we're going to get feedback on that along with our potential roadblocks. So what are we seeing as we're implementing this as it goes on? Are we seeing the same things in month 1 that we're seeing in month 2, month 3, and discussing those roadblocks and how do we get through those?
Thank you. Team, questions?
Before we begin with board member questions, SBRs, do you have anything you want to share as well?
Yes, I would like to share.
Okay, SBR, Stefan.
All right. So, good evening, Superintendent Dr. Cotto, board members, and Board President Rivera, and the community. So since the discussion is on the topic of the honor pouch, I felt it was necessary to provide student insight regarding the honor pouch system implemented within the main campus of the high school. So over the past few days, I collected questionnaire feedback from students in various classes. And the findings indicate that a majority of the students are intolerant for the honor pouches. Though some acknowledge that the system can prevent classroom distraction, the majority feel that it could have been implemented using less restrictive policies, such as the policies that were already being implemented, as in prior to the pouch system, phone boxes, or the arbitrary collective system, or I don't know the exact name. They were being placed in every classroom, but they weren't enforced consistently or enacted in a consistent manner. So a few students commented on how they believe that had this system been implemented solidly, it would have promoted concentration without entirely denying access to phones throughout the day. Students also conveyed that the honor pouches have detracted from their learning experience, particularly for upperclassmen who use their phones for FAFSA verification, Common App submissions or college applications, and online flashcards and student and school calendars. They've explained that it's not the lack of phones that encourage focus, but it's the feeling of structure and trust that can be established in a classroom environment. The majority asserted that being so close yet so far from their phone is more nerve-wracking or stressful than it is helpful for focus. The second primary issue is the logistics and efficiency. Students reported much longer wait times in the mornings, and combined with the security checks, the congestion, and it results in a lot of frustration, tardiness, and even some medical concerns. Some students are concerned with the large accumulation of having a bunch of people in a small area, this faster spread of germs and the common cold, especially with the winter around the corner. Others noted that some teachers and staff members have had to devote time to deal with the pouches rather than instruction. There are also safety issues. Students are concerned about not being able to reach family members in the case of an emergency. Some said that there's more boredom and disconnection, and some acknowledge that the students are now attempting to bypass the system by smashing the pouches, sneaking it in, or attempting to locate magnets, which negates the purpose of enhancing focus. But nevertheless, there were some responses that did recognize the pouch's ability to stabilize classroom settings and limit noise or distraction. But even those students proposed compromise measures, like making an exception for phone access at lunch or study hall. In short, the students understand and appreciate the intention behind this policy, but they're requesting for balance, a more moderate solution founded upon the enforcement of previous policies as opposed to outright prohibition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Now we will continue with board comments. We'll start with board member Amanda.
Yeah, the one,
Question, should I say?
yeah.
Yes, questions first.
The one question I had was partially answered about, how students get a hold of family, and family gets a hold of students. And it was a big concern about how parents would be able to get a hold of their students. How has that been going? Has that been pretty smooth, or?
I think that was a primary concern at first, and I'll let those who lead buildings answer it. So I did, the only building I went to, well, I go to all the buildings, but I was at Mount Pleasant, and I was talking to Miranda Moore, she's a secretary there. And I said, how's the phone calls, how's the volume? She said, well, I had one parent who called, she's like, I'm just calling to test the system, she got through. But for the most part, and I'll let them speak for it because they have to live it every single day, I don't think we've had an issue. But I'll let you guys answer the question.
The staff have been more than accommodating. Each secretary has an additional line. All the assistant principals have a magnet, so if somebody needs to contact the parent, I have all the phones that aren't in pouches in my office. So sometimes somebody will come to me and say, I need to call my mom. I find it, have it, or they'll come to my office because they know I have the magnets, and I say, go right ahead. Or if I just point to the office phone, they just call. I say, do you need privacy? He says, no, I just gotta make sure I get picked up. And haven't had a complaint or an issue with a parent or a student.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, I mean, on a larger scale, we have many offices, so every leadership community office put a phone in the office for students to utilize. We don't restrict passes for that. Magnets are available to open pouches because what I am learning is that our young people's working memory needs to get better because we don't remember our parents' phone numbers anymore. And that's just a circumstance of not having to use that. So we have unlocking devices to do that because students aren't memorizing phone numbers. So I haven't come into an instance, I mean, students email me all the time, they stop by and let me know. I haven't had to deal, and that's not to say that other administrators in the building haven't, but it hasn't been a major issue around I haven't been able to get a hold of my parent or I haven't been able to use a phone. I think our principals, admin, secretaries are very mindful about that because we were very explicit about that has to be allowed. And I haven't seen it as a problem. Maybe they've come to the main office as well. We have our phones separate on there. They come in, they show their pass, and you use the phone.
Mr. Sitz at the
Yeah,
elementary.
I think at the elementary, we haven't had an issue either. The thing that we see the most is, like Mr. Green said, is the students don't know their phone number. So they'll come down, ask to use the phone, and we'll say, what's the phone number? We'll punch it in for you. Do you want to punch it in? And then they stop for a second. They're like, I need my phone. And then just go up. It's unlocked from the classroom, and it comes down. They turn it on. They use the phone, and then they go back to class. That has been really the only issue that we've seen in class with the phones, and it hasn't been an issue of getting it. The teachers haven't given an issue of the student going to grab their phone, bringing it down to the office, turning it on in the elementary level.
So just, and to add one thing, this team was very intentional. Prior to the start of the school year, we met with all secretaries, all teachers, all levels. And we were just students have to be able to access the phone and need it, we'll figure it out. So kudos to the teachers, kudos to the admin, on just being able to create that access for our students.
Okay, but so that's excellent to hear, but just to clarify, parents calling in has been a non-issue too? Okay, thank you.
Board member Vivian?
So you already answered one of my questions. Can you just clarify for me, per the law that the governor had passed, is it a bell-to-bell phone restriction, and that includes lunches?
Yes.
Second question, of the listed infractions of the cell phone policy, do you have any data that shows how many of them or what percentage of those infractions were a result of a student attempting to break into the pouch or sneaking phones in outside of the pouch?
This doesn't speak to that specifically, but I would say qualitatively.
So
speak
yeah,
to your
so
experiences.
when it's entered into the system, there is a description in there of what it is. We also flag the students in there. It's quite a bit. The first 2 weeks, and it's as I stand at the entrances and check pouches every so often, I'll comment because you see the pen mark and the pencils marks. Like I told our young people in the first week, like I've watched all the videos. I know how you're gonna do it. I know our young people are creative and their minds are growing. And like I tell them, I love that you want to learn because that's how you learn. We learn as young people to take things apart, put them together. That's how we learn. So as I check them, I look and I say, oh, I see the pencil marks. But Mr. Green, that was the first 2 weeks. I just wanted to see if I could do it. So we see, I don't want to say a lot, right? Because I don't have numbers, but we see it frequently. We have those conversations. There has been some that are broken. Some students have gotten creative. We've seen them, again, we've had those discussions, not just with the students, but with the parents. But it is not as frequent as I thought it would be. Some of our students are leaving phones home. I didn't bring it in today. My mom said it's better than I just leave it home. So we're not seeing them a lot. You know, we still see phones. We have to address them. We haven't run into a situation, you know, a major situation where a student flat out refuses. They're usually like, all right, you got me, take my phone. We have a great system where we take it, we lock it up, they get a card, they pick it up at the end of the day. So I haven't run into it yet. That's not to say, you know, we won't, but yeah.
I'd probably say less than 8%. I mean, my student population is over 700. So, I mean, I actually house the phones for students that either have lost their pouch or the pouch has become damaged. I mean, most of the middle schoolers aren't saying that I did this, I dropped it, it broke. Okay, that's it. It's not worth getting into an argument. We understand how it is, but that's one of the next steps. But that's what I'm seeing. Students that don't need their phones are leaving them at home, so then they're walking around kind of with empty yonder pouches.
Or they're turning them in themselves. Like
Yeah.
I was surprised to hear students are like, no, I don't have my pouch. I just rather turn it in, and then it's locked up. So
yeah, I mean that's part of the entry system. If you stop by Oneida, you'll walk in. We have a table. They come in, they fill it out themselves. They put it in. The staff takes it, and they kind of it's like they're doing a bank deposit, and they bring it up in my office. Whenever I leave my office, I lock the door, make sure nobody can go in there because it's the one thing we do not want to have is a lost phone. Really, the only issue we've had is if a student lost their pouch, they left it someplace, and we've been able to retrieve all of those. We've had staff members pick them up, they bring them to the office, then really it's just finding where it is, and then they're happy.
Thank you. And my final question, so bottleneck at entry was mentioned, and I know that I had asked similar questions when weapons detection was first implemented. So is there in fact a bottleneck? How severe is it? Are we addressing it? And are students really being marked tardy after having gone through said bottleneck? And how are we tracking this to make sure that we are appropriately and accurately reporting this information?
So yes, like absolutely. So the first 2 weeks or so, there was a bottleneck. We were getting used to the system. The first days we had to hand them out. So it took about 4 to 5 days for students to come in first time, get the pouch, we assign it. After that, it has decreased the amount of time getting in, but there are so many other variables that are causing students coming in late. I mean, we have 2,000 students. We have 2 huge entrances. We've made adjustments for moving to our FA wing to our pool lobby, One, to fit more students in as winter comes, so that we're not outside, so more students are able to come into the building. I don't know that it's Yonder that has further slowed down the process, because once students are used to it, whether they have their pouch or they're turning in their phone, that's fairly quick. So we have like a no bag lane and a bag lane. If you don't have your bag, you just zip right through, almost like an easy pass. So I think there's other variables that may slow that down. To your point, so about 5 minutes before the bell rings, if students are still in line, we start to hand out passes so that they aren't late to class or they're excused from class. So then we have to go in and start changing those to CTU to CTE, which is class tardy unexcused to class tardy excused, showing that it's an excused tardy, it's not the fault of the student.
So you want to speak to the middle school?
That's similar to what we're doing. If you're, I mean, I try to shut the back doors at 8:35 and get everybody else, and then we put anybody that's tardy to school, they go through the front. The variables, if the buses are on time, depending on how many are getting dropped off, sometimes it's in waves. I've actually started opening the doors a little early just to make sure first they're standing outside in the cold, but to get them in, but so that they can get through and then they can go to their stations. Giving them passes, like Mr. Green said, if you're inside and you're going through, it's excused. If you come through the front, it'd be like a regular school target.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
All right, last thing and then I'm done. So just because I'm curious, right, because if other students are expressing frustration with entry in the mornings, I would like to see if we could possibly dive a little deeper into this. So is there a way for us to look at data from 2 to 3 weeks after weapons detection was implemented and compare that to 2 to 3 weeks after the cell phone policy was implemented, and see, was there really in fact this huge increase in tardies that were truly weren't tardies?
Yeah.
That's really what I want to know. Is it really an issue, or is it just a little bit of a wave as we adjust, and now we're back to the normal that we were already at before the cell phone policy was implemented?
So just to clarify, you want to say by the 3rd week of September, what was our tardy rate across the buildings?
And compare it to
Last year.
around the same amount of weeks after the weapons detection was implemented. I understand we had that huge hump with the tardies. It wasn't truly the student's fault, but after things kind of leveled out, on average, how many tardies were we actually seeing at that point compared to how many tardies are we actually seeing now? Because then I think from there, if there really is a problem, that might help us to identify where we could make adjustments if necessary.
That's great.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because as I said, there are other variables that play into that. If a machine goes down, we're hand searching bags. That's gonna slow it down. That is our most frustrating days. I see Ms. Janice over here saying, yeah. So those are our most frustrating days, right? When something like that goes down, technology goes down, a bus or two comes late. I mean, at the high school, 2,000 kids, we have CDTA and yellow. So when we look deep at that data, we gotta look at all variables. I'm constantly on camera to count what time did this bus come, right? My thing is I wanna get our young people in for breakfast, right? So now you're coming through the lines, you're slightly late, I still wanna get you to breakfast, still not your fault, I wanna get you fed and then go to class. So I would love to dig deep into that and look at each variable and how that's affecting the whole process.
Thank you. I'm done.
Board Member Alexandra and then Board Member Kathy.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
So I've gotten some feedback from some educators in the high school, and they described the cell phone policy as, for them, as punishment or even walking on eggshells. So my 2 questions for you are, how much of this policy has impacted our educators? And then what part of the enforcement actually applies to the educators?
I'm not sure I understand enforcement to the educator.
Right, so you have these rules, you gotta put them in a yonder pouch, you can't use them, it's bell to bell.
Yeah.
Does the enforcement of the cell phone policy impact our educators?
Well, it impacts the classroom greatly. Kids' heads are up, they're paying attention. I mean, the feedback I got when I sit in liaison with teachers are, yes, this is a great thing. We have more kids engaged, they're talking now, the discourse has improved. The impact for them is really, if they see a cell phone, they call for a safety team member, the safety team member comes, student gives it up, we give them a card, and that's it. So we don't even want to remove the student from a classroom, right? So when I hear the impact, in what way, I guess
And
I'm
maybe
asking.
I'm not phrasing the question right. So they said they feel like they have to sneak in the bathroom to make important phone calls. So the impact on the teacher.
On the
the
adults,
teacher.
on the adults
Yes,
themselves.
teacher,
Oh.
educator.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't know what you meant. So, like, we don't want our teachers on cell phones, and if they're in the middle of a class, they shouldn't be leaving to make a phone call. So I mean, if they have their own time, if they have their planning time, like, I'm not sure that's. I mean, that's nothing I've ever said. You can't use your phone. I mean,
I'm just
Yeah.
sharing some of the feedback.
So this
provided.
was when we met with all the teachers, right? We said, our greatest thing is we need you to model for the students. We said we are very repetitive. You have to model for the students the behavior that you expect. However, when you're on your prep, your break time, that is your time, you're free to use your phone. What I love is this, and if they go in the bathroom, it's like, I feel like, just like Mr. Green, when we're on our phone, the kid sees like, uh-oh, right? And I think maybe that's the anxiety, but I like that because to me, they're saying, I want to model for what the students must see. If that makes sense.
Okay.
I was just thrown off because that's the first I've heard of that. I mean, our building is pretty honest in coming and saying,
Well, Mr. Green, I'm not making it up.
no, I'm not. That's why I was just confused. Like sneaking, like, do I have young people that hide their phones and sneak in there? That's why I thought you were saying that.
Who feel like they have to sneak to use the phone, and that the verbatim, it feels like punishment to them, and they're walking on eggshells. So that is verbatim
Yeah.
from the feedback that I received from teachers in your building, sir.
Listen, at first I'm hearing it, so I'm glad I heard it here, but sure.
And our committee didn't amend that portion of the
No.
policy. That policy was for adults the same. We were just looking at the student portion of that policy, so.
Thank you.
Board Member Kathy and then Board Member Jamaica.
I'm more interested in the departure. How long does it take to
I mean-
demagnetize them and get them out of school and
That
to
was,
their buses?
that was the first thing that I was worried about. As they talked about the arrival, we worked on that. I was afraid that we weren't gonna be able to get the buses.
Yeah.
It is not, no, they're highly motivated. The way that the magnets are located, and they've actually, they've set it up that you can see them, ding, 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 and they're actually, it is.
Yeah, our high school buses, we have CDTA, so they are very, very strict about running on time. But again, they're highly motivated, they want out. Click, open it up. We haven't had a problem. If a student misses a bus, it certainly wasn't because of not being able to unlock it. The students that turn their phones in, we have a separate location at the same exit off to the side, so they quickly give their card in, take their phone, and they leave as quick as the students unlock it.
The only time we've had to hold the bus is if a student has lost their pouch, and we think we found it or retrieved it, just to make sure that they can have it as they go home. And that's maybe 3 or 4 times.
So, lost the question. How many, do we have any statistics on how many students have come to the office to use the phone or, how many calls from parents, testing the system, anything like that? I mean, more than you would have had before,
I guess, at the high school, I guess in retrospect, maybe having a student sign in to call home, but for me, that's just like, if you're needing to call home, I don't even want you to sign anything, make your call, right? So we haven't tracked how many students need to do that.
I mean, they're not lined up in the hall.
No.
And again, at the high school, there's many areas, so for me, it doesn't seem that large of a number, but I don't have any data on how many are making calls.
I'm actually gonna say I see less students, because in the past, students wanted permission to use their cellular device, so they knew that if they came and they make a call, or a teacher in the past or an educator would say you can make a phone call in the hallway, maybe 2 or 3 at each office. I mean, that's not a lot during the day.
In the, my third question related back, well, we don't have any of the charts up and I can't look at it here, but the lines with the one for, the number that was the, reason they had it, 240 was one of them and the
Okay.
other one was the bigger one.
126.
Yeah, the red line, no, the other one back. The red line, was last year, right? And
Red
then.
is this year.
Red is
Red is this year, okay, but is that red one part of, you said that those are those were frequencies more than one time, is that?
The
Yeah.
red is a new code, so there wasn't a comparison to last year because it's multiple violations of that policy device.
When you say multiple violations of that device, is that by one person or multiple
Yes.
persons?
By one person,
or-
by one
So that
person.
would be Tony had his phone 3 times taken away from him versus the
Yes.
126.
That's
we
what I
just-
was trying to get at, is
Yeah.
what that red represented in terms of the frequency for an individual, so.
Yeah, it's a little different than the normal because for September, the blue is the same code from
Okay.
24 and 25, so you kind of have to look at the number versus the red is the new code.
Okay, so it's really down then substantially then on those, well, we didn't really have it last year, so you can't
that's-
really compare.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, okay, but it represents frequency
Yes.
For an individual, all right, thank you.
Board Member Benega.
My question is around process at the entrance. So, because it's been acknowledged, kids are finding ways to sneak them in and those fun things, because they're brilliant, love you young people so much, that they have yonder pouches, they put the phone in the pouch, show you what's in the pouch, they still have to go through the safety machine. So how do you determine when someone goes through the safety machine if it's a safety issue or a cell phone issue?
So,
So like, what's that process? Everybody put their bags in, here's all my stuff, they walk through, they beep.
yeah, so most students have, there's one of two things. They either hold it, their yonder pouch,
Mhm.
or they put it in their bag. So when it goes through the bag scanner, you can clearly see the phone and the yonder pouch.
Yep.
When they have it in their hands, it's in their hands. So they'll put it on the belt and then walk through the ballards, or put it in the bowl and put it in.
But I'm
into
saying
the
they have
system.
nothing in their hands, everything's on a belt,
Right.
they beep. What's the process to determine if it's a phone or it's a weapon?
So then then they're wanted. So after they go through the ballards
Mhm.
and it beeps, so the AI shows, I'll say AI, shows a box in which Jeff was here to, what is he? So it shows a box around like what area? So if it was in their pocket, it would show a box around that area. So
Okay.
you would want that area.
Okay.
And if it beeped, then can you just empty your pockets? Kids would empty their pockets. It could be a belt, it could be a button, it could be a lot of different things because it picks up a lot of metal. If they have their phone in their pouch, we know it's not a phone unless it's another phone, right? So usually at that point, when you want, the student's like, yeah, I got another phone or something to that extent.
What happens if the student says, no, I don't?
Yeah.
So if it beeps in that area and you empty your pockets, then we're looking for, is it a zipper? Sweatpants have zippers now. So we have to go through that process and then an admin would come and say, hey, what's going on? Do you have anything? There's only certain much we can do, right? We know some of our young people are getting creative. So there's only so much we can do. It's just about that relationship and that conversation. We usually, our students that have those relationships, it's usually, hey, Green, hey, so-and-so, come talk to Johnny, on your random name. And it's fair enough. And it's just meeting them and having that discussion. But that's to the extent of where we're at this point, is really trying to say, are we being safe? And I'm gonna be honest, most of the time, our young people are gonna be honest. And they're gonna say, I have this, or I forgot this, or this is what it is.
Do we have instances where they're not? Like, so what is the process if? And a side comment that maybe isn't for this discussion, because you said the wand is then looking for metal. My first thought is, ladies, who's
Yeah.
got an underwire bra?
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yep.
And so if they ding, you use the wand, it goes across the area of someone who may be wearing an underwire bra, like, that may be true
That is
for
one,
right
no,
now.
no, that is what that's one of our,
So my concern,
Yep.
my question is, if the student professes, no, it's nothing, what is the process that, like, gets them in the building? Or when do you determine that they can't come in the building, and what do those numbers look like?
so there's a difference. If a student refuses any part of that process, then it's a call home saying they're refusing to go through this weapons detection process.
Well, no, I mean,
But
after
again,
weapons detention, they went
Right,
through,
once they
got
go
wanted.
through it and we have that conversation, I struggle with, like, it is a conversation we're having. I know our young people have wires under bras, or
Yes.
whatever that statement is, under wire bras.
There's
Right?
metal. There's metal.
Yeah, 100%. So I've posed this question like, hey, how do we look at this process and what do we do in those instances? Because that, I'm not worried about a phone at that point. I'm worried about something coming in the building that can harm themselves or someone else, right? So that is my main concern with that area, and our young boys too, who may be hiding stuff in places that I don't necessarily want to search. So that means that conversation, that relationship becomes the most important thing. We can work through anything is my comment to our young people. Like, I'd rather know what's going on than to have something happen and then I'm looking at a situation where you're either harming yourself or harming someone else, and then there's more repercussions for you. So I'd rather work something out and have those deeper discussions. Does it always work? No. Then I can't hold you. If you've gone through that process and we've done our due diligence, then I can't hold you. I don't want to hold you from school, right? I don't want to hold you from getting to class. But that piece right there, what you mentioned, is a deeper discussion that we have to have because of safety. At that point, it's not about a phone.
So I guess the two things I just want to know is how many
Member
phones
Jamaica,
have been
I'm gonna have
connected?
SBR because you've asked like 4 or 5 questions, so I'm gonna ask
Wait, it was
SBR,
one
Janice
question.
to continue. Go ahead, SBR, Janice.
If I may ask a question, and I
And
hope
then we'll
it
return
might
back.
It's
answer
not 4 or 5
a little
questions,
bit
but
of
4.
yours. What I've noticed is, and what I've heard, is that a group of girls goes through the detection, the things that give the box, and then they say, I don't have anything. But they're going off, and I'm wanting you, and there's something there. They say, can I get a woman administrator, and can you take this girl? I'm wondering, because I've heard that those are pat downs. So I'm wondering if those are the conversations that you mentioned, or if those are
Those are the
people being patted
conversations.
down.
And some young ladies prefer to have those conversations with like a Miss Hoffman or someone,
Okay.
right? So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask a couple of questions and then we'll go back around for people who have questions. Some of my questions were already asked, but I'm gonna kind of rewind back to some of the things that you all said. Do you feel across, because we have elementary, we have high school, we have middle school, and we have the city as our campus, do you feel that our students have been more engaged? From September, and I know it's a short period of time, this is a paradigm shift. That's what I think everyone has to understand too. This is so new, right? So have you seen more engagement throughout?
Yes.
And what I mean by engagement is in the classroom.
Yes.
Our students seem to be more engaged in speaking and asking questions, even though it may seem very different to them because it's there, if you have your phone, in the past, you might have been tempted to look at the phone. So that's my first question. And I know this is very general, right? Because each classroom is very different. Then my other question is, do you see students talking with each other more?
Yes.
The discourse has risen greatly, whether we're doing walkthroughs and seeing it in the classrooms, teachers are reporting it, we're seeing it in the cafeterias. There's absolutely more conversation happening. amongst students at a personal level, but also at an academic level in classrooms.
Okay, and then I'm gonna pause, and then now I'm gonna open it up to some comments, if folks have comments. Board Member Jamaica, do you wanna continue with your comment, and then we'll go to Board Member Kathy?
So, just like what Board Member Alexandria was trying to clarify what her question was, and my attempts to clarify what my question was, I'm looking for the number of students that were sent home because of some issue walking through, and the number of phones found on a person going through our weapons detection system at any level, whether it's when they first walked through, they were wanded. And yes, I've heard students say that they were requested to either pat themselves or to remove articles of clothing to prove that there weren't items in their chest area.
So when you say articles of clothing, you mean a coat, a jacket?
It started with the coat, but they were quite uncomfortable
Okay.
with
a
how that
coat,
process.
it may be a coat, 100% may be a coat,
Yep.
yes. The number of phones, I mean, every day we collect a phone where a student comes through. No student is ever sent home for going through and giving up their cell phone. Like, there's no.
No, I'm saying
there-
going through and refusing to continue with some, they're saying there's nothing on them, and whatever wand goes off cannot prove that nothing's on them.
So the only reason a student would be sent home is if they've refused to go through weapons detection, period.
So if they go through weapons, they
And
get
due
wanted.
diligence is done in locating, having that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a number for you, but it would be a rare and extreme case that a student would be sent home if we have no evidence or proof that a student has anything.
Okay.
And I would say too, like when we met with other teams, one of the things that we talked about in our committee was if a student does get something through in terms of a cell phone, but it's never taken out or seen in a classroom or anything else, like Newburgh and other places called that a win for the policy anyway, because it's done its job of preventing students from using it in the classroom. So that was something our committee was clear on when we were.
We haven't sent anybody home. I had 2 students bring multiple devices, and as they went through, they just gave up another device. And eventually we were like, okay, just go. And then in class it fell out. They thought they didn't have a pouch, they sent it to me. I asked the student, he said, I don't have anything. I said, you realize somebody thought they saw something, but I don't have anything. I said, okay, go back to class. I mean, that's not patting anybody down.
So I guess to answer your question in more depth, the violation codes are the ones that we've had to take the phone. So those are numbers of either students coming through weapons with a phone and we took it, or students in class had a phone. So, and that's how we're documenting that. And that's,
Okay.
so we're calling it a referral, but the resolution is had a conversation. And then the student is flagged in the system for cell phone violation so that we're able to then meet them at the door and say, all right, you got to turn your phone in for this many days, then you get your pouch back. So those are those numbers there. Those are those numbers of students coming through and either having their phone or having their phone in class.
126 and 240 includes either at the entrance or in
Correct,
class.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. I did not understand.
Yeah, I better understood your question as I was like, oh, that's the number you're looking for.
Chad, I feel as if you've been really left out.
No, Mr. Chang.
So I thought I'd ask
Let it
you,
roll.
Oh, Kathy, I love it. What do you got?
I'd ask you what has been happening at the elementary school, if anything. I mean, what are you noting there? Do many elementary students have phones?
So it would be, it's a shock to see how many students, even in first grade, are coming in with phones and things like that. A lot of it is for the bus ride. The parents give it to them, they want them to ride, they want them to have it on the bus, and then they get to school and they used to put it in their book bag and everything like that. But it would come out during lunch And it's the one student that has a phone and the 8 students around them that doesn't have a phone, and then they're trying to play a game and everything like that. So what this has done in the elementary, they come in, if they're K2, it just goes to the office. If they're 3-5, it goes right in the classroom, in the box. The students haven't had an issue putting it in there. And lunch and recess has been much better. Just like they said in the middle school and high schools, even in the elementary, it has been much better without a cell phone, because you're not getting all around it and then somebody's trying to reach over and grab the phone because they don't ever get to have one. We have had a lot more talking. They're playing again outside. Lunch has been much better. But I appreciate you asking me questions.
And one other, you made reference to having met with Newberg and Booker, but that was before we ever implemented it. Have you met since? I mean, is our experience much different than what you're hearing from other school districts since everybody implemented something as of September? I mean, or are we pretty normal?
I try to speak with Albany High School frequently.
Yeah.
Their principal I actually graduated with. So I sit on a Capital Region principal board. So I really seek to look at a school that's very similar to ours with our population to see what struggles are happening. And I have to say, hearing it, they're very similar things that are happening. And I always try to weigh like, hey, what do you do in this situation? Here's what we do. How do you handle it? Very similar things that we're saying. They too are reporting they're seeing more engagement in classrooms and among students, but they're going through some of the same things at their entrances, the cutting of pouches and the replacement of pouches and things like that. I like to say, I mean, I don't have any data, like I feel like, hey, our young people are thriving with it, right? But I don't have that comparative data, but I speak with them frequently on a lot of things, just to say.
So we're pretty normal.
Yeah, and from what we heard to Newberg, we're very aligned with what they've been doing, what Troy's been going through. I did want to mention, because you had mentioned a bus, somebody said a bus. When our students leave for CTE, they open their pouches, right? So we recognize anybody leaving the building, like let's get it open because they're on a bus ride, they may be driving to CTE, so we want to make sure they have that availability to call in case of an emergency when they come back when they're at CTE, they also have to house their cell phones there. But when they come back, they go through the same process in the morning as they do coming back from there.
Thanks.
Thank you. I did want to share at the very beginning, and I forgot that board member Vivian and former vice president Nahalani were on that subcommittee with all of you, and I know you engaged, as you were shared earlier, a lot. And also board member Jamaica, board member Vivian, and former vice president Nahalani are on the committee, on the policy committee. So they really dug deep into the policy. And to your point, in that policy, we not only talked about how we want the students to kind of, we originally didn't call it bell to bell, because we did it as I think Mr. Farina, you had mentioned, we worked on this prior to HOPO's regulations, so we really didn't want it to be restricted. But then when she did the bell to bell, the policy committee reconvened again, the 3 folks and Deputy Superintendent Joe and others reconvened and really tried to develop a policy that was not punitive, that really was restorative, and that helped build those relationships. As Mr. Green, you had mentioned, and all of you really are talking about relationships. We do not want this to be punitive. We want this to be something that the students can engage more, can build relationships, can interact. And I just want to share a quick story, 2 quick stories. When I was went to the last 3 football games, I found it interesting, and mind you, I wasn't there for the homecoming. I wasn't there the entire time. But I thought it was interesting. I didn't see a lot of kids on the phones. So it could have been where I was in the section, but students were really on the phone, and I thought that was interesting. Then in one of the other schools that I went to, and I thought this was cute, is that the administrator was saying that the kids were using their hands to make believe they're doing TikTok videos. And I thought, students are innovative. They will find a way, and I think and again, nothing is perfect. I think we're hearing that. But I do appreciate that we're having this discussion and we're trying to do this regulation that we can't control the best way that we can. And to hear the things like the students are engaging more in many different ways. It could be defined differently in the classroom. And the hallway, you said the lunchroom. I think, Mr. Farina, you mentioned the lunchroom. The students are really talking with each other. They're playing basketball, they're playing chess. Innovation, I say, because, I thought that was cute. I would have loved to see the kids doing the TikTok with their hands. So I do appreciate it. I do understand this is difficult. This is a paradigm shift. It's difficult for everyone involved, but I appreciate all of you coming and having this presentation in October, so it's still very early. And we are willing to hear more in the future, and I do want to thank the board for engaging in the conversation as well, so thank you.
Thank you. Take a picture. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. And our next presentation is from Dr. Rebecca DeVries and Assistant Superintendent Andrea Trout-Freeman, who will share a update on K-12 school counseling under Policy 8230. And if possible, we do have the policy and questions related to this presentation. And while they're setting up, I'm just going to read it because it's not on the screen at this moment, but it's a guiding, we have two guiding questions around Policy 8230, which is District Comprehension Guidance Plan. The first question is, how does the district's comprehensive guidance plan reflect the board's responsibility to ensure equitable, developmentally appropriate counseling supports for all K-12 students, aligned with our policies and priorities? And the second question is, in what ways can the board use reported data and outcomes to ensure that K-12 guidance plan is effectively addressing attendance, behavioral, social, emotional, and mental health needs district-wide? Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Just give us all a minute. Load it up here. Where do we aim to advance?
You can aim it anywhere.
You tell me, because I mess up too. So just forward button.
Yep. There you go. Yeah.
There we go. And now we're on speed. Going the wrong way.
You don't drive that way.
That's okay.
I think I hit the button like 10 times, and now we're just flying through the whole thing.
There's a delay.
We're at the end.
That was the question.
Presentation over.
Bring us back to the beginning.
Thank you.
Oh, fastest presentation I've ever done. Okay, hit it one time. All right, good evening, and thank you for having us this evening. As you know, we always start our presentations with our district vision, tagline, and values. In New York State, every district is required to have a comprehensive school counseling plan. You have copies of that in the folders that are passing around. It reflects the district's mission, vision, and outlines the organizational values and priorities of our counseling department. Tonight, Dr. Rebecca DeVries, our Director of K-12 School Counseling, will walk us through how this plan connects to our strategic plan and supports all students. Okay. Our vision for counseling is simple but powerful. That every student in Schenectady has equitable access to the academic, social, emotional, and career readiness skills they need to be successful, not just in school, but in life. This vision is backed by policy. Under New York State Regulation 100.2, every district must provide a K-12 comprehensive counseling program. And here in Schenectady, our board has codified that commitment through Policy 8230. This work doesn't just connect to our district's 4 pillars, it actively influences them. Counseling impacts how we advance student and graduate success, support and grow passionate people, builds partnerships with families and community, and ensure equitable access, equitable systems and resources. Tonight we'll look at how this vision comes to life, the ways we're seeing growth, the areas that need more attention, and the impact of students, staff, and systems. We'll share what's working, how we know, and where we're headed next. I will now invite Dr. DeVries to the podium.
All right, so it's the bottom one, I guess. Okay, I got it set. Thank you all very much for having me tonight. Superintendent Dr. Proto. It can't be understated, the piece around the New York State Commissioner's regulations, which requires us not only to have the plan, but to update it annually, which our Board of Education Policy 8230 also has. So what you have in front of you is our updated 25-26 plan, and we've had one for many years. We've updated annually. And this plan is, and the foundations is really built around both the Commissioner's regulation and our board policy. And in Schenectady, our plan isn't just about compliance. It's about creating, so if I did this here, nice pause, okay. It's not just about compliance. It's about creating a K-12 system that grows with our students. Counselors don't just appear in high school for scheduling. Counselors are part of a student's journey from the very first day they enter a Schenectady school until graduation. Our comprehensive counseling plan, as you noted, is found in your folder, is intentionally structured around defining what school counseling is, how we deliver it through both direct and indirect services. It outlines how we manage our work using data-driven decision-making, and how we hold ourselves accountable to outcomes and results. In doing so, we've built counseling as a cohesive system, not simply a collection of isolated programs by building. So at every level, this plan ensures counselors are working directly with students, and that's very intentional. The majority of a counselor's time, 80% of it in fact, should be directly with students. It means being in classrooms teaching lessons on college and career awareness, personal safety, digital citizenship, cell phones. It also means running small groups, helping elementary schools students build friendships, guiding middle schoolers who are struggling with attendance, or preparing high schoolers for an interview, advancing their study and organizational skills. And it means one-to-one conversations with the kids. It might mean walking a ninth grader through their first high school schedule on that first day, or helping a senior and their family map out a path to college, the military, or a career. That 80% is the heartbeat of the counseling system, and it's how we turn this plan into a lived experience for students. The work is also data-driven. We use student outcome data, such as social emotional learning screeners, attendance data, academic achievement data. We analyze how many students are in accelerated courses. I could go on with other pieces. Career interest inventories, of which I'll talk about in a moment. There's a scope and sequence in your folder. And we also use fidelity data, which is how many lessons are we doing at every level? How many students are we running small groups with? And what's the efficacy of our interventions with those students? This allows us to not only know what student needs are, and of course what we can predict and try to preventively support, but how are we appropriately responding, and is what we're doing working. Our work is also grounded in equity. Counselors are people who open doors. We make sure that every student, no matter their background, has access to what they have a right to, whether it's an after-school program permission form, exposing them to different careers, even at the age of 4, or helping them tap into their strengths and growth mindset so that they can have a difficult conversation to advocate for themselves with the teacher, and push them to take a chance on taking an accelerated class, even if they don't believe in themselves yet. Ultimately, our hope is to provide them the ability to have high school pathways that prepare them for life after graduation. And it's also collaborative. Families, staff, community partners, and board members sit on our advisory council to look at this data with us twice a year and help us shape the plan and the priorities so that the plan stays responsive and real. When we meet as an advisory, the data becomes more than numbers. It turns into stories about our students, our schools, and ultimately our community. We use what we learn, both the measurable outcomes and the lived experiences, to shape goals that truly make an impact and bring our community into the work alongside us. So you will see mention of goals at every level within the plan. What's powerful in it is that it isn't 3 separate efforts. Elementary, middle, and high school aren't silos. It's one continuous journey. The plan guarantees that students have the right support at the right time, building readiness step by step. So belonging in elementary, exploration in middle, and further preparation in pathways in high school. And the result overall is a counseling system that's consistent, developmental, and intentional, and ultimately students are supported, engaged, and equipped for what comes next. So if slide 4 was about why counseling matters, This slide is about the difference it makes and how it makes it. The real impact in students' lives and outcomes by level. So let me talk a little bit about elementary first. The impact here shows up stronger in social emotional learning, SEL, with the goal of building those skills developmentally through very intentional teaching and in supporting whole classrooms where students can begin to feel psychologically safe to take academic risks. That is a priority for us at the elementary school. It's also beginning of the story for many families in schools. It's their first relationship with a counselor, builds trust and connection. Counselors teach Tier 1 lessons that blend that social emotional learning with academic content and skills like goal setting, problem solving, running targeted groups to strengthen self-regulation and peer relationships. They do daily check-ins with students, academic coaching to increase time in learning, and really they partner very closely with families. They help them feel connected emotionally to the school community they've joined, and technically to our system through tools like Infinite Campus. So we do both technical and adaptive work with families at that point. And believe it or not, as many of you might know, we do early career and college awareness, which starts there through read-alouds, community role exploration, and high school mentor visits during College and Career Week, which was the past picture that you saw there was our older students in our education courses going to visit how elementary students to talk about becoming an educator. In middle school, it's a turning point where students begin asking, who am I? What am I good at? Where am I going? Counselors help them explore those questions in all the realms of academics, social, and emotionally. They also lead the whole group lessons on college and career exploration, academic skills, growth mindset, and goal setting. And in 6th grade, students begin career exploration and their own identity, their strengths, through our platform of Naviance, and which is in your folder, the scope and sequence, 6 through 12. In 7th and 8th grade, counselors work alongside teachers to provide mandated instruction on bullying prevention and sexual harassment. It's also the time where individual performance appraisals, those one-to-one meetings happen, which are required by New York State regulation, where counselors start working with students and their families about guiding conversations around academic, social, and future planning. Yes, they include course selection or scheduling, as they would call it, but it goes far beyond that. Counselors in middle schools run those small responsive groups for social and emotional support. They're also responding to those developmentally sometimes appropriate real-time needs, such as a friend crisis, but it could even be a real crisis or a threat assessment. They use attendance, social, emotional, and behavioral data to target interventions, all while maintaining that active ongoing communication with families to support living between transitions, 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, and ensuring that we're increasing and maintaining engagement. Middle school is really that stage where identity, voice, and direction begins to take shape. High school, this is where it becomes more tangible. While many people first notice counselors here, that full K-12 system has been preparing students for this moment. A cornerstone that is often thought of is that one-to-one meeting. We call it a progress review in the counseling world. I'm sure most of you have heard about that course scheduling meeting. As I said, it's far more than that. It's where each student builds and updates an individualized plan with their counselor. What we are calling their portrait of a graduate student plan. So we're tying goals to courses, credentials, and pathways through use of the Naviance tasks that you see before you in grades 6 through 12 to really connect student voice and student planning with their strengths and what their interests are to course selection and ultimately the pathways that we're building. We also connect students to outside services and enrichment. We run events like trade fairs, college and career week, scholarship workshops, FAFSA workshops. I could probably stand here all night and say all the things that the high school team does for events. Looking ahead though, our goal is that every student graduates with a documented portrait of a graduate plan. And that counseling directly impacts the areas that matter most. We want to see increased participation in early college classes, improved access to and completion of the career and technical ed, the CTE programs, and stronger readiness for workforce pathways right after graduation. These goals align with the district's 2030 strategic plan and our shared commitment to graduate success. Together, this is how the counseling department advances that first pillar, which is the student and graduate success pillar. It's visible, it's measurable, and it directly shapes whether our students graduate prepared for their next chapter. At the same time, we know where more work is needed and attention is needed. And I'll just mention two. I'm sure many people have heard of the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, which The governor has made a requirement of that or a waiver. We know our completion rates need to increase, and we also know that student attendance needs to continue to be an area of focus, particularly around equity priorities, barriers, and within the plan, you'll see where we are going to keep pushing and supporting around those areas. So, what's next for us? We want to continue to sustain the excellence and build on what we've already had possible. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and do a little bit of an honor of the work at the elementary level, which was made possible by the board. At Page Elementary School, under the leadership of school counselor Aubrey Clements, we've been awarded a New York State School Counseling Association scholarship that has us working with a national coach that positions us to pursue national recognized American School Counseling Model Program, RAMP recognition. It's one of the highest marks a school counseling program can achieve. I don't know the total number of elementary schools that have it in New York State, but it's very few, so we're very excited. And that recognition reflects the strength of our elementary counselors as a whole, laying a foundation of what we believe will be a connection and readiness for students as they move into middle school and high school. And that's a credit to all of you and to the work in the buildings that the teams have done. As we move forward into middle school, as I said, we will continue to be not only responsive, but really trying to shift more into preventative. We want to start having those conversations earlier around advanced coursework and access. In June, we send a letter. Here are the importance of advanced coursework, why children and parents should know about that. That's a priority for us in middle school. And we want to help adolescents through one of the most difficult developmental stages. I may be saying that as a parent as well, and not just the director of counseling. But by the time the students reach high school, we start to see that return on investment. Those annual progress reviews, those individual meetings, the FAFSA campaigns, the portrait of the graduate planning will all be aligned early so that we can start to see the early college access, the career and technical education pathways, and we'll begin to show that the K-12 continuum pays off in tangible outcomes for students. So, in culmination, our next steps are to communicate this counseling plan, to have it be more visible across schools with community stakeholders, to have everyone really know. We want to expand that visibility and impact of the more specialized roles, like our transition counselor, our college and career counselor, and be on the cusp of continuing to anticipate both state and national shifts so that Schenectady stays ahead as we currently are. As always, we remain grounded in equity, ensuring that every child and every family has a counselor in their corner in service to academics and to learning, because that's the very purpose of what school is about. So I've shared the system. Don't play yet. The impact, I thought if I gave it a little pep talk, it would do all right. And the next steps. But the truest measure of this isn't my words. I would have loved to have brought all the kids into counselors. We have many of them here, but we couldn't. So to close, we want you to hear directly from them in what counseling means in practice and how it shapes futures every single day. So without further ado, and with gratitude to, I don't know if Ryan and Aaron are here, but thank you to them for the video we have to share with you. Go ahead. Oh, thank you. That was like a video.
Schenectady City School District are key partners in helping students succeed, especially when it comes to college and career readiness. I spoke with counselors from every academic level to learn how their work connects to our strategic plan's first pillar, student and graduate success.
At the elementary level, every year we do a college and career week, so we expose students to different career opportunities through push-in lessons, college visits, guest speakers, and allowing them to figure out what their strengths are and what they want to possibly do in the future. We try to have the students have a growth mindset, so thinking of the positive and the power of yet, so they might not get a concept yet, but with hard work and determination, they are able to succeed. We tie our work to the first pillar. We want students to feel emotionally safe in school so that they can succeed academically.
She brings me to her office a lot of times whenever I'm mad.
My counselor supports me by listening to me and what I have to say when I feel upset.
You know, I present lessons, I come in, I do circles. There's a lot of work between my teachers and myself as a team. I like not working as a silo. Collaboration is one of the biggest things for me to work on career readiness. I read their data, like I look at their assessments, I look at their iReady assessments, I look at their grades, I look at their attendance, daily attendance, and monthly attendance, so I know where they are at academically. Really, connected to the district plan, because we have to look at our students as they move on to our society, and we prepare them. We're not just preparing them for education, we also are preparing them as a citizen of the world, and we want students who are, emotionally able to survive the world that we live in today.
My counselor supports me because she makes sure that we're on the right track, and she talked about the goals that we're going to have for the future and like what we have planned next for us.
My main goal here as the college and career counselor is to really see where students' interests lie and make sure that every student leaving this building has a purposeful plan for after high school. What really kind of lights a student up? What are they really interested in? What classes are they really engaged in? We talk a lot about strengths and weaknesses and things they enjoy and don't enjoy, and kind of tie that to the skills maybe you would need for going to college, or what, strengths you might need for certain careers. My work, I think, as the college and career counselor is to really work on breaking down those barriers that are, stopping maybe students from being as successful as they can. So whether that be the college application process, whether that's getting them linked up with a trade union after high school, whether that's making sure that they have meaningful employment after high school, and connecting them with community resources. Really, I see myself as kind of just helping them along that path in any way I can.
My guidance counselor supports me by always being there, whether it's an email or a stop-in or setting an appointment with her. She's always there to listen. It could be a personal issue or help about college or just venting about stress in class or something at home. She's always there.
To learn more about the role of counselors at each academic level, visit the counseling page on our website.
And actually soon we'll have a counseling corner on every school's website, every page. We have the high school and we have more coming from elementary and middle. But in closing, thank you for your continued support. I think together we've built a counseling program that's not just about compliance, it's been transformative. And it really has ensured that every student in Schenectady has a counselor who knows them, who champions them, and helps them turn their potential into possibility from their very first day of school till their walk across the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, board members? Board member Jamaica, board member Kathy? Kathy can go first, too.
This is probably a very basic one. What is an audience?
So it's our platform where it's a college and career platform, and students.
I'm sorry, it's a what?
College and career platform, where students go in and are assigned tasks such as, so in your scope and sequence, it tells you by grade. In grade 6, what they do are like a road trip nation. They start exploring different careers. They might take an inventory that tells them about themselves, and then it might match them up to careers in that platform. So it's something that we use through NARIC, and it helps guide the conversation, and it gets kids thinking about who they are and what they like and what they're good at. And I'll tell you, there are like so many different careers I've never even heard of. And it's really
you probably haven't even started.
Or haven't even started, but it starts a conversation, because if you've ever asked a kid, like, what do you want to do when you grow up, they're kind of like, either look at you or have some interesting ideas, but sometimes you really have to guide the conversation.
So is that a purchase program or something, or it comes generic, you said, but it's...
It comes through, we've had it for years and years.
The biggest thing I hear on the outside, it comes from many organizations that I'm part of that give scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not be $40,000 scholarships and so forth, but they find that Schenectady is unresponsive in giving in that having people apply for those scholarships. It's the biggest criticism I hear. We get, it might be something for Schenectady County. We'll get applications from Ballston Spa or not Ballston Spa, Burr Hills, for example, Niskayuna, multiple, Mohonasen, and so on. Nothing. crickets from Schenectady. And it's very disappointing because, I mean, I for one am telling people that, you know, our kids need it maybe more than most. That's not to say that kids in other districts don't as well. And so it would be helpful to have at least one person that maybe that these scholarships could be referred to so that they can get applied for by our students or something. We need a better handle on that.
That is actually the college and career counselor position.
The one we saw at the end
yes.
here. I
Ms.
did not know her
Bristol,
name,
She's
so.
new. Yes, Ms. Bristol, she's new. So that is good feedback. So I did take a note. So thank you on that.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
then board member Jamaica, and then board member Vivian.
You mentioned that you look at data twice a year. What data?
Lots of data in terms of both the student outcome data and the fidelity data. So on our advisory council, we look at attendance data. We do look at achievement and we look at behavior to try to globally look at it because we're looking at a K-12 continuum. But we're also looking at what we've done because it's the accountability.
Could you just repeat that? You said
Sure.
behavior, attendance, and
achievement. There's other pieces, as you see in Naviance, we're going to begin looking at. There are metrics in there for implementation around what percentages of students are taking the inventories. But then the other piece of that is around what are we doing? Because it's not just about the student outcome data, it's measuring the data of what we're doing as a counseling team. So how many students are we actually meeting with individually through our individual performance reviews? How many individual classroom lessons? When the plan is live online, there will be links for what we call a calendar. There's a high school calendar. There were so many, I couldn't print them for you because it was over 50 pages individually, and I just know with the paper, I did not want to print all of that. But the links I could send as well, and you could see the fidelity data in that. Are we pushing in quarterly at the high school to do whole group advisement? Are we running small groups, from an advisement responsive level? That's the other data that we look at.
so follow up, that you look at the data twice a year. Does that data then get presented to the board and the public twice a year?
No, and can I add on to something that I said before? That we do it twice a year in the advisory council. We do it much more as an internal team. So the formal piece of the advisory council, which is a large group of people, is the twice a year. Internally, I meet with middle school teams weekly, as well as the high school team and the elementary teams. And we start reviewing data right around first quarter and as screeners come out. So the data review is much more frequent internally, but we do not currently publicize the advisory council, although once this cycle ends for this year, it will be part of next year's plan. It'll be tagged in there.
All right, my final question is actually from my buddy Joseph. Since the frequency of the comprehensive counseling plan is annual, but where'd Joseph go? Is he hiding behind you?
I'm listening.
Yeah, okay, I couldn't see you, my bad. No, it's policy committee stuff. Since the comprehensive counseling plan is annual, but the comprehensive guidance plan policy has not been updated since 2019. I'm feeling like we might wanna put that on the agenda sometime soon, because we've made a lot of changes to language to be consistent across our policies, so just
We get in for December, just not Sunday, right?
whenever you think it makes sense.
I noticed that date too. I was like, 2019, that was 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, I know Joseph's on top of it.
Yeah.
Who's Joseph?
Oh, yeah, it's a thing I do.
Thank you, board member Kathy and board member Jamaica. Now board member Vivian and then board member Alexandria.
So first things first, I just want to say as a parent of 2 boys in this district, I am personally very grateful overall. Guidance counselors have had a tremendous impact on both of my boys. As you know, the high school that made it across the stage, by hook or by crook, he made it. And then my little one as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. It is not unnoticed. So first question for special ed students, because I'm looking through the comprehensive counseling plan, and it mentioned middle school students being engaged in the college and career readiness conversations. So for our special education students, Does that process differ at all as opposed to a conversation with the child and gen ed? Are we including other members of the team in regards to whatever that particular child's specific needs are in order to be able to successfully have that conversation?
That's a really good question, and I don't know that I've actually ever thought about it that way, because I consider, just in my own head, maybe right or wrong, for all of the students, and the individual performance review that is required by the state is with every single student. So I would say that it probably happens dually, but I'd have to go back and check. The conversation that happens with the individual student and their families, so families are invited to that conversation at the middle school, 6th grade, 7th, 8th, all the way up. We just sent out senior notices and we're finishing those up actually almost. That conversation is very student focused about what they want to do, the tasks that they've done in Naviance, the classes they want to take. It does intertwine with CSE though. So I perhaps would want to go back and maybe explore that with the middle school teams that I meet with weekly to say, is this different? Maybe we need some input from our advisory council to say, should it be different? Have the individual meeting, but then maybe that needs to be done before the annual review meeting, so that that information can be brought in.
Thank you, because I just think about different communication needs, depending on whatever that child's specific need may be. So a general, I'm used to having this conversation, I had 50 of them before I spoke to you. Maybe they need a conversation worded differently or presented differently in order for it to be as impactful as intended.
Absolutely.
Second question, so we have students that I'm assuming are kind of falling through the cracks, right? So, for example, we have one particular student, they can have a 3.8 GPA. They're in the IB program. They're focused. They know where they want to go. They're on course to graduate on time. Cool. They're a squeaky wheel. Or on the other side of that spectrum, we could have a student that has frequent attendance issues or frequent behavioral issues or other needs outside of the school in the home where they're going to need more attention, time and attention from their guidance counselor, another squeaky wheel. Well, what about our students who are kind of in the middle in that gray? They're not necessarily on the radar of their guidance counselor right away. How are we identifying and catching those students and making sure that they're getting the same amount of individualized attention as other students may be getting?
Did you read our MTSS manual? Is this why you're asking me this? Maybe. So actually, one of the focuses for the counselors really, because we have amazing social workers who often are on that one side of the continuum really working with intensive high risk or things of that nature. And you're right, there are students we can check in with that we are supporting, but it's that tier 2 group, right? And so that is the focus for this year. And we're actually, that's why I've shifted my leadership to meet with the middle school and high school and elementary teams weekly to talk about data, because it's the kids that I'm seeing over time now that I've been here almost 7 years that are the quiet ones, that are the compliant ones, that are kind of below the radar. They're not failing everything yet, and we want to be able to support them. So the tier 2 groups that we're going to be starting to run, just for example, coming up after we do some social emotional screening at the secondary level where students rate themselves on a strength-based screener, is looking at kids who are telling us, you know what, I don't think I can do this. And then we look at their attendance and we say they miss a day a week. Those are the students that we really want to re-engage with, because we don't want to lose them. We don't want to wait too long. So although counselors have the purview of every single kid, our focus right now, a bigger group, is that tier 2 group. And that is part of both the MTSS manual, which is why it's mentioned in the counseling plan, and it's intertwined with the counselor's work. So, yes.
And lastly, so I also, in reading the comprehensive counseling plan, it says here that the goal is for our guidance counselors to meet with students and to have 80% of their time being spent with individualized attention with our students. I also see that in the high school we have one college and career counselor and one focusing on career development, transition, and support services. We have 2,000 students in that building alone. Realistically speaking, is that enough?
So I want to say 80% of our time should be with students. It doesn't have to be individual students all the time. It's just directly with a student. 20% is indirect, is on behalf of, and then a small part of that 20% is like management of their own, like the accountability, are they doing what they're said they're supposed to be doing? So we have to be creative. I do think that we have the best, I've looked at all of the local schools, and if you went and canvassed them, we do have great ratios in terms of we are below the 250, which is the national recommendation for counselor to kids, including elementary, which you don't count because they don't meet with them individually. But yes, I think so far, yes. And we are looking at how are we measuring academic rate of improvement? Because the building of a whole child is very important. While we're concurrently doing that as a counseling team, we're also giving access to academics because that's what we're here for, because that's what really opens the door for the learning. So I can't give you a yes or a no in terms of proof of concept yet, but my hope is that as we as a team start looking at what we're doing, the student outcomes, is it enough? Sometimes it's not about the numbers, sometimes it's about our practice. And as the high school shifts between leadership communities, it's shifting our practice and the ways we communicate, and then getting, feedback from stakeholders, students, families. Is it enough? Attendance rates can sometimes hurt us. Did we get to meet with that kid because they weren't there? So I can't give you a clear answer yet, but I'm hopeful that maybe by the spring we'll be able to look at more of like the student impact and the academic rate of improvement with those.
Thank you, Board Member Vivian.
Yes.
And Board Member Alexander, and then SBR Janice.
Thank you, hi. I have two kids, one recent graduate and one still in the district. And unfortunately, my experience with counseling is not the same as Vivian's. So great counseling on the elementary level, but on a high school level, the lack thereof. And I think that we've missed the mark, and I'm trying not to get emotional. I've shared some of this with Dr. Cotto previously. But my question is to you, one more statement. We can't counsel high school students with career readiness in college without incorporating families, because one, they can't pay for it themselves. So when you're doing career readiness, and I have not been looped into these conversations to help my daughter prepare for the next step, you do not do us any favor. Because my daughter walks away without scholarships, she walks away without the appropriate financial support, and I gain an additional bill. So my question to you is, how is the department educating and supporting families navigating financial aid, scholarships, and that also includes our English as second language families as well? And I'm speaking from a personal lens. All of this sounds wonderful. It is bells and whistles, cupcakes and everything. But the reality is I had a child who counseling when she entered high school was not the same as when she was in middle school and elementary school in the district. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So I just wanted to because I was taking a couple of notes because I appreciate the statements prior to. So your question is, how is the department kind of navigating both the FAFSA, the financial aid forms, the New York State TAP forms, scholarships, particularly for students who've been marginalized, like our multilingual learners? Do I have that correctly?
And educating families, so not just our students.
Yep. I can tell you what we do in practice right now, and I would love to, have other further discussions too, and get feedback from community members and other people in the board in particular, and then just parents. We do FAFSA nights where we have, and we've been thoughtful about trying to do them around events already at the high school. It's hard to go back to an event and in an evening twice or three times. So looking at the calendar, we do multiple financial aid nights. We're working with SUNY Schenectady on that as well, around helping parents, recording them, putting it out there. Here's how the complicated process of your ID for the FAFSA, putting up, and we have a collaboration with HES, which helps us also have materials to send out to families. In terms of scholarships, we are uploading them currently to Naviance. So if there's a local one, we're putting it on there. We're working with the Office of Teaching and Learning in the departments where teachers are talking about the scholarships as well, as if it relates to something within their catchment area. So those are things that we're starting and hoping to do very purposely. But I think that this is something I can take back to the group of high school if in that area and say, this is something we need to work on, and can we think outside the box? And then we need to also then start asking questions of how can we better do? Because it shouldn't just be our thoughts of what we should do, it should be the people that we're impacting of what they think will work best.
Thank you, Board Member Alexandra. SBR Denise.
Hi.
Hi.
I've been trying to think of how I'm gonna word this whole time, so I'm just gonna kind of just talk. As a high school senior who is, I would like to say a couple steps ahead because I see in this scope and sequence 9 through 12, you have the word resume a lot. But I do take a course that does have us make a resume. So being a few steps ahead, I'm still in my counselor's office, I'd say every single day, taking those little steps, getting some of the Common App things done, getting some applications through. But I wanted to see if there was like, I also like to know the inner workings of things sometimes, so I wanted to see if counselors had set plans as to what they need to work on with students, or if they just go based off what the student needs. Because if there's a student who isn't like me, who doesn't just go to their counselor's office every day and tell them what they need, or who is scared to go and speak to their counselor and tell them what they need, will their counselor have a set plan and be able to be like, oh, I haven't done this with this student yet, or I'm at this step with Janice, but I'm not at step 1 with another student. I don't know if they have set plans or if they just work based off of what comes at them.
I have a 2-part answer for you. The first is kind of the global overview of those meetings I was talking about. So I don't bring like a student's name tag to it. I look at like aggregate data. How many of our freshmen have worked on the tasks that are in there? What's the percentage? Are our 10th graders at the high school? Because we have freshman academy, right?
Right.
And then we have those calendars I was mentioning. We have a high school calendar, freshman calendar. That sets forth what are counselors doing in August, July, August, September, October. So that is the overall plan to reach students. The individual student question comes down to them reviewing their own data, and they do. So they keep their own Google calendars, they audit them. How many times have I met with kids? Every time you go to your counselor's office, your initials might be on her calendar of like you were there and what you were there for. And then they, in their leadership communities, are talking about attendance. They're talking about behavior, they're talking about course failings or course passing, which is why the grading policy is important, because they can go into Infinite Campus and see that teachers are putting in grades and kind of reflect on that. And then they're making plans of how am I calling the student down to start to guide them into support to remove barriers at every level. So they do review the data and then they work on focusing on kids who are not reaching out.
Okay.
I will say we do face barriers with kids who aren't in our school in the first place, which is why attendance is a priority. Because if the kid isn't coming to school, then we have another extra step to get them into our spaces, or us into their spaces.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board Member Amanda.
You may have just answered it, but my question for you is from a counseling perspective. If you could pick 1 or 3 or 5, maybe less than 5 things that you think are the barriers to kids learning and graduating and either going to trade school, ultimately graduating, what would those be and how can us on the board help you achieve those things?
I'm hopeful that, and this might actually, Alexandria, help with some of your questions. This idea we have of this portrait of a graduate plan, which will live in Infinite Campus, which will memorialize the meetings from 6th grade on up, even though families should be welcomed into and invited to that. My hope is to get feedback on that form, because it will incorporate the students' interests and capture the conversation. So our students move right across the middle schools, down into freshmen, and they transition to the high school, and that conversation gets lost. I think sometimes right now, it's getting lost, and that is a barrier. And we maybe don't have people at the table we need to. And I would also welcome more people at the advisory council to come and give us feedback about how we're doing, because it's not just student outcome data, it's about the fidelity of what we're doing. And as we see here tonight, everybody has a different experience, and because every student has a different need, and we really are obligated to meet everybody's need. So I would say advisory council, as well as we roll that form out from 6th grade on, and where it's going to be an Infinite Campus, and I'm going to look at everyone and say in the backpack, I call it an Infinite Campus, that parents and families, we can get maybe a survey out to say, do you like this form? Were you invited to the meeting? Do you feel safe to participate even? Because maybe you've never been invited before and now your kid's a senior and what are we even talking about? Those have been some of the, I think, our barriers that we have to work on ourselves. I think families and students that I've interacted with are always willing to sit at the table with us when we give them the space and the time to be able to feel safe with us.
Board Member Kathy?
I don't know if you had any questions. One more from me. I've been concerned for a number of years about students who are gifted or accelerated. I'm starting even at the elementary school. You know, they're doing well, but I'm afraid that they're overlooked and they may not be challenged enough through programs because we have so many needs and, you know, at the other end of the spectrum and sort of the middle. But where, you know, I would like to see what programs we've developed or how we're serving children in those situations. And it sounds to me like that might be something under counseling. And I'm going back, I mean, decades ago when I was in school, that, you know, I was doing well, but I was the oldest and with parents who had not gone to college. I was a senior in February before my grandmother took it upon herself to contact a counselor to see what I needed to do to go to college. Now, I know that there's a matter of self-advocacy at this point, but I didn't know that when I was probably 16 or 17. So the fact of the matter is that I have a feeling we have those children falling through the cracks.
So I just want to make sure I have it. So the programmatic piece in terms of academics would be across collaboration with the teaching and learning department.
I don't doubt it. You know, I just hope that somebody's identifying them and maybe pointing them in a direction.
Yeah, but I agree with you that the understanding of students when they come to us, because kids can have behaviors but actually be bored, right? And that
Absolutely,
that could be overlooked.
That's exactly the word I was thinking of.
So to me, that might be around some of the professional development of really making sure that we're knowing our students very well. We do have early graduates that happen quite a bit within our district. We have kids that move right.
Well, we have the early college and those.
No, I mean they graduate a year early.
Oh, yeah.
We do have that piece as well. So as you know, and so I would say that it's probably more to be explored in terms of if in the data are we failing kids who probably need to be accelerated in certain ways. But that again would be within looking at student academic achievement, engagement, and then working with the Office in Teaching and Learning around the pathways and courses and things that are available.
I remember very clearly, probably 12, 13 years ago during gap elimination adjustment, that we had to cut so many of those kinds of programs because we needed kindergarten, you name it. And I just don't know that those have been restored.
For the elementary level, you mean?
Well, elementary and really through the whole progression of K-12, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Board Member Kathy. Board Member Jamaica.
As I was looking at the back of the packet, and something I appreciate that we do between policy and plans is we list how things are connected, right? So the plan talks about how it's connected to policy 8230, but you also mentioned equity, which is policy 8140, and that's not included as a connecting piece for this. Additionally, the code of conduct is not listed as a connecting piece for this, as you have mentioned, equity and restorative practices and behaviors, which are very clearly in our code of conduct. You're collecting data twice a year, and it's not being shared from you, but we have intermittently, not with fidelity, shared data that relates to behavior, attendance, and achievement. I know because I went and checked, I went all the way back to 2016 to see what data I could find in our board docs, which sometimes it's once a year, sometimes it's twice a year. I couldn't tell you which department it came from because that's not clear, but based on questions of fidelity and ongoing issues relating to behavior, attendance, and achievement, I think it goes without saying that this board and our community need to have that data presented to us for it to be comparative, because we cannot assess fidelity if we're not able to look at are there any trends going throughout the years, whether it's the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and so on. Because based on what I could find through our board docs, we should all be concerned with what the relative risk looks like for our students. Based on what I saw, the average is that Black students are twice as likely to receive suspension. And we've not made a change in those numbers for years. So I hope that very soon we will be able to see that data for ourselves in a way that allows us to fully understand it and not in piecemeal from previous years.
I will also, let me just interject. I'll look through, because I know we've had some presentations in the past. So I keep it all. It's not as organized, but I will look for it and then I will send it to you and everyone else. And I'll see also if the district can, because I know we have had those conversations and we've also had that presentation. But I appreciate you bringing that up, because I'll be more diligent in sending it out to everyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to pause on my questions because we have some other things we want to discuss, but I will submit my questions to you. Okay.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. So we are going to move to the unfinished business. As we move into the unfinished business, we began discussing at the last meeting on October 8th. I want to remind the board of our options as stated on policy 1240. So this is for the open seat. So the options are A, and it's again policy 1240. Appoint a qualified resident to fill the vacancy until the next regular election. Under that, offer the seat to a third highest vote getter for the most recent election. And then we also have a question based on this, so I'm hoping it'll come up soon. Call a special election to fill the vacancy. I do have some information around that because I know board member Jamaica and I think you specifically had some questions around the special election. So board clerk Michelle, thank you for researching it. I'm just going to share a few things that we have to do. So step one would be we would have to declare the vacancy. The board officially declares the seat vacant in its minutes. 2, we call for the special election. The board passes a resolution stating the purpose, the date, time, and place of the election, poll hours, and petition filing requirements as part of Ed Law 2602. Step 3, we would publish the notice. Publish once per week for 4 consecutive weeks, with the first notice at least 45 days before the election. Post in at least 20 public places 14 days before the election. Again, this is Ed Law section 26023. Then step 4, candidate petitions filed with the district clerk at least 30 days before the election. So this is similar to the end of the year. Must include 100 voter signatures or 2% of voters from the last election, whichever is greater, up to 500. And this is Ed Law section 25024. And then step 5, conduct the election, run like the annual election, polls open at least 9 hours, no earlier than 6 a.m. with 2 hours after 6 p.m. The district clerk oversees and certifies the results. It costs about $17,000 to do this. And mind you, again, we also would do it at the end of the year because if we do go with a special election, that person would only be elected for the time period from now. And actually, Michelle had mentioned it. I want to speak for you, Michelle, so you can chime in. But because of the process that I mentioned initially, this may not occur until about January. Okay, so then in essence, once we have the election in January, February, March, April, May, the person would be in office for 4 months. Okay, so that's a special election. So that was the second option. The other option would be leave the seat vacant until the next regular election, which is permitted under small city school district guidelines. So tonight we will have an open discussion or conversation about how we wish to proceed. There's no official vote required at this time. Our goal is to reach a consensus or majority understanding on how we want to move forward. I'll now open the floor for discussion. Please feel free to motion if you'd like to share your thoughts or propose an action. So you can get started. Board Member Alexandria?
I thought there was another option where we can collect resumes. Am I mistaken?
That's part of if we want to appoint someone.
Okay, that's part of the appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, you got it. Does anyone want to interject? Start? Yes, Board Member.
I'll start where I started 3 weeks ago, and that is basically, I think that we should wait till the general election in May that we have. You know, I've lived that experience before with the board. We managed it. You know, there have been very infrequent tie votes. We've had a couple, but I think that we could manage it by waiting. I think January would be optimistically when you talk about the 45 days and so on. I'm thinking it's, more like February and you run into all the problems of holidays and whatever else. So you're talking a very short span of time for going through that process and costing that money, so.
Thank you, Board Member Kathy.
Yeah, I would second. I don't have a problem leaving the seat vacant. It's close enough to, I don't want to say it's close enough. It's so close to when a person would even begin campaigning again. Like by the time if we held a special election, by the time they got elected, they would have to start campaigning all over again. So I mean, I don't know if I necessarily feel strongly one way or the other. Like it. Definitely appreciate the conversation, but if we can leave the spot open, that's something I would consider.
I'm just gonna add, I appreciate, Michelle, you getting the information. I just wanted to make sure, when I asked, that we were fully aware of, what the special election would entail if we were gonna do it, because how can we decide to do something if we don't have all of the information? And like Kathy, I'm at the same place I was last time. I do think we need to leave it to the voters in a regular election.
I agree with that. I think that doing it in January and spending $17,000 is us being fiscally responsible. I'm not opposed to leaving it vacant, and I'm not opposed to collecting resumes and appointing someone temporarily.
But they would have to stand in May again. Or,
Right.
Go through the process.
Right.
And I did have one question on the
Special election.
the special election, because we're a small city school. I don't think it would be 30 days total in advance, because our petitions are due a shorter period of time than in the central school districts and so forth on the 30 days.
I believe so, because we received that from, was it not NISBA?
I did get it from NISBA,
NISBA.
the special election. Now I'm trying to think, I mean, I
That's
do
just
think
an
it is
exception
20
for such
days.
as for small
I
city
think
schools,
for
it's got
small
20
city,
days.
it is 20 days, but we still have to start
No, I understand.
advertising
I'm just saying
45
that
days
it would be 20,
Yeah.
20 days, they could still submit a
Yes,
petition
that's
as
true.
opposed to the 30 days, which is true for Unified, I think, and also Central School
Yeah.
District, so, yeah. That was all, I mean, and that's a technicality, that would be clear.
I do have several points, but I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to talk before we.
Couple thoughts.
Okay, sure.
If we were to go the route of appointing someone, our only options are either collecting resumes or the third highest vote getter from the last election. Okay, and there would be no other way to cast sort of a wider net in order to make that decision.
If we have a special election.
Well, it would be collecting the resumes.
Okay, so then if we were to go that route of collecting resumes, would it be us as a board discussing and making that decision openly? Would it be a committee? Would we get a disinterested third party involved to help make that decision? What would that look like?
It would be openly. Okay. So I have a few, I wrote a lot of notes. So I have a few things I want to share. I'm gonna be very transparent. I think we should go with the third vote getter. That person already earned measurable support from the community in the most recent election. Appointing the individual honors the intent of voters who, without cost. So that's one, and also it doesn't delay having someone else on the board. The other piece that I think is really important, and there's several that I have here, is that, and I mentioned this and I'm just being transparent, we don't have full attendance quite often. And I worry that we will have a tie or a deadlock, and we've had it very frequently on this board. And it really makes doing the work hard if we are in deadlock or if we don't have the majority on the board. And I think also, in addition to those two things, there's one less community member on the board whose voice is being heard. We have such a beautiful, diverse group of board members with a voice. Now, not having Vice President Nohalani, we have one less person on the board who can share the voice of the constituents who voted for them or who vote for them. So that's another challenge that I'm concerned about. I also, in terms of upholding equity and inclusion, leaving a seat empty, especially for several months, because this would be about 7 months. It reduces the diversity of viewpoints, as I kind of mentioned, and weakens the balance of voices that reflects Schenectady's student population and community. And again, I do want to reiterate, we have a very strong board who has a lot of strong opinions, and that's good. But with one less person, we don't have that voice. And we don't have those constituents who voted for that person. And in particular, for me, I'm thinking about the third vote getter. The other piece too is functionality. You know, we have a lot of decisions to make, and I think you all have seen, we've had many pauses because of a lot of challenges that we've had, which is normal to have on a board. But again, if we do not have the quorum, the 7, you know, the original 7, I anticipate that there is going to be a lot of challenges with moving the work forward, and we're here to focus on our students, the district, and the work that we have to move forward. So that's another piece. I'll pause because other people may have something to say. If not, I do have more.
When you mention the voice of those who voted for us, it's actually not our responsibility. Yes, we get elected by voters, and it's those who actually show up at the polls who decide to put us in this seat. But our actual responsibilities, I was looking at it, which is why I'm looking at it right now, is that the responsibility of the board is with the school children, always their ultimate focus. School board members act officially at the board table, working with other board members to serve students and accomplish a litany of things that relate to the children in this district. I'm just gonna speak for me. I appreciate the number of folks that showed up at the polls and decided that they wanted me to represent this city as a board member. I represent and speak for all of our children being successful in all the ways that we're supposed to. I by no means see myself, and those who voted for me, I'm sure are very clear that I'm not the voice of those who voted for me. I'm the voice for making sure that we fulfill the tasks that we're supposed to for these students. I don't think that I am not honoring those who voted for me, so I do take pause with that when we think about, yes, there was a third vote getter who wanted to run. I will make no claims about, you know, how I feel about them personally. The process is that we have an election, and it's not a, well, if this, like, we could decide that, but it's not a foregone conclusion that if someone leaves, then they're going to get the seat. We have to decide that for ourselves. And given the fact that our school board elections have the lowest voter turnout from anything, yes, we are diverse. And there are any number of people that could sit on this board and have a personal reflection on a different segment in our community. We don't get to choose, we get to decide whether or not we're gonna choose that. We do, but the election is supposed to choose that. The voters who do actually show up do choose that, and then we're supposed to represent everybody. So if we do a resume process and say, okay, we're gonna decide by resume who best fits and is going to make decisions based on what's the betterment of every child in our district, or who's bringing a potentially different perspective that may allow us to be more holistic. All of those are possibilities. And I still, at the end of the day, go back to the process is, we were all elected, and our role and responsibility is for every single child in this district, not to our voters.
Yeah, and there's a lot that you said there. So I will say this, of course, that we are here, and I say this almost at every single board meeting, we are here for our students, we're here for our district, we are here for the betterment of the totality of the education for our community. What you see here is that we are very diverse in what we say, and it could change from topic to topic. That's important. And we have our different lived experience. Many of you share your experiences as a parent. Many of you, I was a former parent. I don't usually bring that up, but I was a teacher, so I bring that up. You know, everyone is bringing a diverse, SBRs are bringing their student diverse perspective. What I am hoping comes out very clear is that not having another person takes away that point of view, which is critical for all of our students and for all our school community. You know, I will respect whatever the board decides, but I think we are doing a detriment to our community and our school district by not filling that seat. We need that other voice on the board.
Can I have two questions? Sure. So let me think of the one question first. It's about, oh my goodness, I'm not gonna remember it now. Oh man,
That's okay.
Well, the question that I've been waiting to ask, I guess I'll just go with that one first. So I was looking at the election numbers for the past few years, back to when Noelani was reelected, and the runner-up for this past election actually had like significantly less votes than the runner-ups for the previous two elections, even the one when Noelani was reelected. So, I mean, if we're gonna go on the basis of elections, I don't even know if this is something we can do. I would think logically it makes more sense to pick the runner-up of that election because that shows more, you know, like how they would have felt between like Noelani and this other person, the runner-up. And the fact that, I mean, Jamaica's made a good point that school board elections do, like they don't really get a lot of numbers, you know, when you come out. So the fact that the runner-up for the last election received even less votes than the runner-up of the previous two elections, I mean, I don't know if that says to me that the community does want that person in that position. I thank you for your point with having that, the last voice. I do think it's a good point to make. So I think if that's the direction that we're gonna go in, then, sort of canvassing and, reviewing like the letter of intent or a resume or whatever you would wanna call it would be the best option. And I remember my question now. How, is there a specific, requirement for how we would advertise for that as there is for advertising for like a special election? Like, is there a requirement for how you would advertise for that?
For the special election?
No, not for the special, like how you would advertise. So like for the special election, you have to like, yeah.
There is, I can send that to all of you, Douglas? Oh, I think.
So I think the short answer to your question is no, I don't think there's a specific way in which you advertise it as long as it's advertised and made known to the public that you're seeking someone's interest for the board seat. If I may interject, since I'm standing here, you have sort of a two-pronged approach here, which is extremely unusual, only unusual because you're a small city school district. Every other school district in the state that isn't a small city has only one choice. How are we going to seat another board member? So your initial question, whether we should, is only a question that's asked in, I think, 62 small city school districts in New York State. So it's a little weird. Normally you'd be having this, do we hold the election or do we appoint someone? So the election, I would strongly recommend no one consider. The reason you consider an election is when the unexpired term of the person who's left is longer than Noelani, former board member Noelani's term is, which is till May. So your election is only going to bring someone till June of 2026. So it makes absolutely no sense to hold an election, given the costs and the timing of it, to seat someone for, in effect, at best 5 months. So if you appoint someone, that person serves until May, and there's another election, and then the highest vote getter takes the seat, and so on. So I would strongly recommend you don't, I mean, it should be like removed from the table, although I'm suggesting something that may be not as democratic as we would like. Practically, it doesn't make a great deal of sense to hold an election. That said, you are a 7-member board. There is a legal process to reduce your number, but you're not doing that. So you look at, should we seat someone? You are the corporate body running the district. You have an incomplete corporate body right now. So it makes, I think, a lot of sense to try to seat someone, respecting that you would not necessarily be perhaps as democratic as an election of the totality of the population is. And then that method is whatever, as Bernice said, you can select the last highest vote getter. You could solicit resumes. You could look at the people, as Amanda mentioned, you know, the highest vote getters in the last 2 elections. As long as the method you use is reasonable, it's generally acceptable. If you randomly say, oh, you know what? Vivian's got a brother. Let's just get Vivian's brother. One might argue that's not particularly reasonable. But as long as there's a reasonable methodology for selecting someone, and getting the last highest vote getter of the last election often makes a lot of sense, simply because it makes it a little easier, but it's not, you know, sacrosanct. So, for whatever it's worth.
Can I ask one more question? Sure. So if we were to go the route of, I guess, reviewing resumes, would the vote have to be unanimous or majority?
Majority public vote.
Majority
public vote. You would.
Oh, we would be doing it in public.
You'd be doing it here.
Okay, so we could go through all of that and then face the tie anyways. Then it would just be.
A tie is a no vote. You don't have a decision. You need 4 out of 7.
Right.
Hence the stalling of us functioning as a board.
Right, but it's easier, like, what happens if we narrow it down? I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm not thinking about it the right way, but we have, if we had 3 people, that submitted resumes, and it came down to a vote of who we would want to take the spot. If 3, would we narrow it down to 1 person and then vote on that, or what, you know what I mean, or would we just vote on the 3 people and whoever got the most votes out of the board would get the position?
I think Douglas is saying that would be
I think
our
that
process.
you would make the
Yeah, we would
decision
make
as
the
to how
decision.
best.
Yeah.
But we would still need 4 votes for
You would still
whichever
need 4
one
votes.
person is.
Right.
One person would still need 4 votes.
Board member Kathy.
I would argue that I'm involved in several other searches not related to school board or anything else at this point. And it's extremely time consuming to do it, to collect the resumes, to screen them, to ask the questions you want to ask, and so on. And I feel that would take away from what we need to do in the next several months. You know, we have budgets coming up, we have, you know, the usual things, but budget obviously takes a big priority beginning in December, January, that kind of thing. So I guess that is another reason for my preference to just let it go to the normal process of the general election.
I also wonder though, because Nohalani was on different committees, and now we don't have that representation on those committees either. And I think those are important because those are the committees, like she was on the policy committee, for example, she's on the teacher center committee, and there's others I don't remember all. So that's one less voice, board member voice on those committees as well.
One of us could take the position.
I hope so.
Send us the list. We'll divvy it up. One of the things I appreciated that Vivian had said last time was for us to make a concerted effort and commitment to being here. Because even if it became the case that we were going to find a process to fill the seat, until that happened, we still have business to do, we still have to show up, we still have to be here. So yeah, no, I just appreciate it.
And you're right, we have business to do, but we had a major decision and it was a 3-3 and it didn't pass. And we've had that maybe 2 or 3 times because people were not in attendance for what, I mean, everyone has life experiences, I know that. But my worry is, again, with the 5, that may happen. We've had some hot topics where we are split. And if someone, God forbid, they have an emergency and they can't be at the board meeting, or 2 people, then that is gonna stall us moving forward with some of these decisions that we have to make, because we won't pass them. There'll be a tie where they won't pass, and that's happened.
But a split is a decision, unless we bring back the thing that we had the split on and re-voted.
Yeah, after the, but that's.
No, I mean, like, you're saying we've had times when somebody was absent and then, we had a split because there were only 6 of us, 3 said yes and 3 said no. So the decision was no. Like, the fact that 3 people said yes and 3 people said no, the decision is no. The split vote doesn't change that it's a no. And the only way that we would have rectified that is if we brought that topic back for a second vote during a time that we had full attendance. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
So we accepted the decision.
And what happens there is, once again, something has to go down, another item has to be moved to another agenda, to another calendar day.
Or we stay
And
late.
we've done that in the past, so it is stalling the work. Because then what was supposed to be on, let's say today, now has to move someplace else because we have 3 presentations or 4 presentations now. So it does stall the work. I mean, we may not agree on that, but it does, and I've seen that happen.
So my brain is moving in like 12 different directions right now. To Jamaica's point, damn good point, whenever we've had a stalemate or we didn't have all board members in attendance and we had a vote, the vote was the vote, right? So I'm just failing to see how that would differ if we were to leave the seat open until the next election, because we already don't bring issues back just because we didn't have everyone in attendance.
Well, that voice is missing though, because we had the 7, so if it happens, even though that's not ideal, we have the 7 board members, right? And then if someone is not there, but if we have 6 and that happens, we are missing that voice. We are missing because we don't have the full 7-member board.
I do see where you're coming from, and I do appreciate it because I understand the importance of making sure that everyone in our school district is represented fairly. Completely get that. When we're talking about a voice, I know when we had this conversation at the last meeting, and I had raised the concern that I wasn't comfortable with just arbitrarily making the decision for the community members, especially when it came to having a discussion over a hot topic issue. And I know that a comment was made that, giving an example of Kathy and I when we ran for re-election, we kind of had sort of an advantage because, we had name recognition over the 2 individuals that didn't. Kind of took a little umbrage to that, but I digress. But when we're talking about the 3rd highest vote getter from the last election, now that discussion has a little bit of a different tone. It's addressed as, well, we're still honoring the voice of the voter because they were still the 3rd highest vote getter. It can't be both, right? So if by that logic, the 3rd highest vote getter, and we honor that by appointing that person, and that is honoring the voice of the voters, then Kathy and I being reelected just because of name recognition, like either we were elected because the voters chose us, or we weren't elected because the voters chose us. It can't be both. So with that, my point is, to Jamaica's point, to Kathy's point, the voters did speak. Now, if we're really going to push having us fill the seat, I'm not comfortable with immediately defaulting to the 3rd highest vote getter from the last election. I would rather have options and have us have the opportunity to publicly discuss those options. To board member Amanda's point, we had other elections where the 3rd highest vote getter had a higher turnout than the last one. So if we're gonna go that route, that's a path I would like to possibly explore. I don't know if it's feasible, I don't even know if it's legal, but it's something that I would like for us to possibly explore.
To Amanda's point, though, there are many variables to that too. It depends on different things in terms of who gets more votes, or one year there's less votes than the other. So there are variables. It could be a hot topic that one year, you know what I mean? There could be different reasons. But I will, board member Alexandra, do you have any comments, any thoughts? So what I'm hearing from the majority of you is that you would like to keep the seat open. Okay, all right, so that's how we will proceed. I will mention on record that I do not agree with keeping the seat open for the many reasons that I shared, but I will, I will accept and I will respect the decision of the board. So now we will move forward. So, okay, so again, the consensus is that this evening, just to put it on record, evening that we will leave the seat vacant until the next regular election as permitted under small city school district guidelines. So that's the decision for that. So at this time, again, the summary is again that we're going to keep it vacant and we're going to move forward with the exec session. At this time, the board will enter into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to the conduct of a board member in relation to the Schenectady City School District Code of Ethics as permitted under New York State Education Law and District Policy 6110. No formal action will be taken during this session. May I have a motion to go in exec session? Thank you, Board Member Kathy. Second? Thank you, Board Member Alexandria. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. We will now enter executive session. Have a good evening, everyone.